computer.
Okay.
So just that everybody knows, we are recording this.
Is it okay if we record?
That's fine.
So if you're gonna fart, make it loud. All right. Make it count. All right, chaps. Top left-hand corner is the very lovely Cade Lang. Cade Lang is an interesting individual in many, many ways. Not only does he play rugby in America, which makes him sort of godlike in a Scythian sort of a way, but he is doing movement method in the classroom. So he's doing what everybody says can't be done. He's doing, 30 kids in a classroom in a state school with movement, not separating movement from the learning. The sort of thing when you run into schools, they'll say, well, you can't do, we can't do that, we can't do that, we can't do that. And Cade absolutely does it, and has been doing it now for how long, Cade? 3 years?
This would be 3 years. Yeah.
Yeah. And with enormous success, to the point that not only does everybody want to be in his class, but and he's got a waiting list, but obviously the school districts are noticing and so on. And he came in a little bit through Bianca Rimbach, who sadly can't be here because her son graduated university early, and she very selfishly has prioritized her family over us, which I think is death penalty. And I shall be exerting guilt, passive aggressiveness to her later for that.
Don't give her too much of a bad time, because Lean's going to take me out and guide me to Crested Butte later on. So it's all good. It's all good.
All right. Well,
Does that make it better or worse?
yeah, I don't know if that makes it better or worse, actually.
She'll pay me back for sure.
Okay. And so just briefly, the people who I can see here, it's a nice cross section of it's international. Say that again. Oh, that sounds like Corolla. Okay, so obviously Cade's from Colorado. I'm sitting here in Germany. Toby's there down under. Grace is in Germany. Astrid, where are you?
In the Netherlands.
In the Netherlands.
There's a city called Woerden.
You said in a shitty, but
A city.
Okay.
City called Woerden.
Is it a shitty city or is it a cool city?
No, it's a good city.
Okay, good. Yeah, good. All right, and then we got Heidi, who's also a Dutchie. We've got the amazing Jane Pike, who's a Wazzy, which means she's now a Kiwi, but is sitting in Wales. Corolla is a Dutchie. Connie is in the US. Do we know where?
Yes, I'm in Tennessee, Dixon, Tennessee.
Tennessee,
about an hour. Yeah.
Yeah. From?
About an hour west of Nashville. So.
Ooh, that is indeed beautiful. I know exactly where that is. Those are in the hills.
Yeah.
Lucky you. And Nick, which Nick is that? Oh, that's correct.
That's me. I'm in New Zealand.
Hey, a Kiwi.
A Kiwi.
Sitting next to a Kiwi. Amazing. You guys can shake hands across the boxes. All right. So the question now is, we've got a few people on. Do we want to
just start
unleash the beast?
Say that we're recording because.
Okay. So we're recording, everybody. I hope that's all right. Yep.
Yes. Good.
Good.
Mm-hmm.
All right. In that case, Cade Lang, take it. How did you end up doing this? Why are you doing this?
All right. Hey, welcome everybody. This is super cool to see so many people from all corners of the map. I mean, really cool. Quick background on myself. I've been teaching for 18 years now. I'm a Midwest kid. I was born and grown up in the Midwest of Iowa and South Dakota, and eventually saw the mountains of Colorado and decided that's kind of where I wanted to end up being right there. And I guess you could say kind of movement method sort of starts back then. I mean, I've always been an outdoor kiddo. I mean, I just knew from early on that, the way I learned was really by hands-on doing things. And I just sort of had that active body. I wasn't the perfect learner by any means. I had to push through pretty hard through all of my years of school to be a decent student. And so, it was, this is going to happen quite often of me. I've got my beautiful motion sensors. If you could see me, I don't know. Let me see. Hold on. Let me see if it works. There we go. You might see me do that 10 more times before this is all over. Anyways, when I started teaching, I fell in the same rat trap I think a lot of teachers do is, you're not quite sure how to manage and handle so many kiddos. So what do you end up doing? You just jump to the curriculum and you get kids seated and you get them working and you get them moving and you just push as much curriculum at them as you possibly can in the hopes that they achieve what they're supposed to achieve, and you move on to the next year. And I would say, you know, through all of that, I have, you know, you just kind of in the back of your mind going, man, there's got to be a better way to do this. There's got to be, you know, there's got to be a better way to help these kids learn and to help them figure it out. Because what you end up seeing is you see the same kind of cross sections of the kids who are really just good, great students who can sit there, they can take the content, they can take it at light speed and move on and do great. And then you kind of see that second half of the kiddos, sort of like where I was. And then it's hard for them to keep up. It's hard for them to grasp all of that knowledge and to just take it all in. And so I would say about 5 years into the educational world, my brain starts spinning a little bit going, okay, how do I engage kids better? How do I really make them appreciate learning, just get an idea of what they're learning, how to just learn it better, maybe just to get it deeper into their brains. So that way it's, you know, they find more success when they move on and they go to middle school with me. And so I was, you know, about 5 years ago, Bianca Rimbach happens to come into my classroom and she says, Cade, what's that game you're doing? What's that activity you're doing? You're doing one of these games again with your students. I'm like, oh, well, here it is. This is kind of what I'm doing. We're just going outside and playing a game, you know, just changing things up a bit. And she comes into my classroom again. And she's like, hey, what's that? I saw you guys outside again. What were you doing? What were you doing? And I said, man, I'm just trying to break the day up. You know, you could just tell when your kids sort of turn into zombies and they sort of just need a break and they need to do something different. And it was just always in me to say, hey, what's fun? What can I get these kiddos to do where they're really engaged in the activity, engaged in the lesson, wanting to do something fun and exciting? And hey, it's beautiful Colorado. Let's go outside and really enjoy this beautiful sunshine and the beautiful weather that we have. And so finally she comes and she says, hey, I'm doing this thing called movement methods, and I think you should get into it because you pretty much are doing these things all the time. And I said, hey, well, what is it? Give me the idea. What's going on? And so that's where, you know, Caroline has been teaching me a lot of different things. And in general, it sort of just fell into like a perfect relationship of this is what I'm doing. I mean, before I ever had a word to describe what I was doing, it was movement method the whole time. And so, like I said, about 5 years ago, that was sort of the introduction, the sneak peek on it. And then about 3 years ago, I officially sort of jumped on board and jumped into it full fledged. And boy, oh boy, this is where I could kind of go down, Rue. This is where I start going down a rabbit hole in 10 different directions. But, this is where you can always kind of steer me back into one. So about 3 years ago, I started movement methods, and about 3 years ago, as you all know, that was like the perfect time to start movement method because COVID had just started. So, hey, welcome. Now we're trying to figure out how to start a whole new program of movement method, and everybody is now quarantined and locked down at their houses on Zoom. So I could tell you my start into movement methods was not exactly a dreamy, perfect start to the whole program. But I could tell you that year, I would say the first year, third year at my school, we had a bit of a hybrid where a lot of my students were able to come back and we were able to be in our classrooms sort of half on, half off. And I could tell you that those kids, if anything, really saw the real beauties of movement method because they'd been quarantined already for almost a whole year, and just getting to come back into a classroom and interact with their peers and to be outside more often. I mean, what a beautiful segue into after COVID is to come back to a classroom where you tell the kids, hey, actually half the time we got to pretty much spend it outside and be outdoors and space out a little bit more because we don't want to be so close to each other. And like, hey, well, that's a perfect combination right there. Let's go outside and be more active and be outside more. And they loved it. Where do I go? So in a nutshell, I've always been a movement method teacher. I just didn't, for the first about 15 years, I didn't really have a good name to put behind it. And so it's really been a really interesting adventure these last about 5 to 3 years, really sort of ironing out and seeing how it all kind of fits together in a public United States curriculum, really, in an educational system.
So how does it fit together in that curriculum? Most of us, like I homeschooled, so I had complete control and freedom. I had to figure out how to adapt curriculum, but I didn't have to do this with administration breathing down my neck, with anyone expecting me to adhere to standards, getting kids through exams, nothing like that. Let alone the 30 kids with conflicting needs in a classroom. How did you address one teacher, 30 kids and a room?
Ooh, well, you could say I'm still addressing that and still trying to figure it out. Let's see here. Where do I begin with this? I would say movement method, I kind of like the idea early on in the program of movement method being sort of a framework, not necessarily a curriculum, but a framework that the curriculum can fit within. And I feel like that's sort of been my teaching strategy and my teaching, ideas in general, is to go, okay, what is the content? What are the standards that I have to teach first? And then how do I sort of fit that within the framework of movement methods? And for me, I found that to be not too bad, not too hard. I've also been pretty blessed to be a fourth and fifth grade teacher most of my career. So I have a really good grasp of our standards, to the point where I am pretty flexible and going, okay, I know what I have to teach them. Now, how do I want to teach them essentially? Do I want to do it? Do I want to teach them this standard and this skill, or even this content knowledge in the curriculum? Do I want to do it through an art project? Do I want to do it outdoor? Do I want to do it through a STEM activity where there's a combination of science and technology? For me, it's really been sort of a nice blessing to go, okay, I know what I have to teach, just a matter of, movement method gives me the flexibility to go, well, then how do you want to find the engagement? How do you want to steer your kiddos to learn that? And how do you want, what do you want to do to have fun? So that's
okay.
kind of,
Yeah.
You go ahead.
All good. Okay. So that's kind of been the nice thing. So it's been, for me personally, it was quite easy to convince my administration, because they already knew I had a firm grasp of teaching. They've known I've been a teacher, so they know that I can handle a classroom, handle different challenges, different expectations that a normal classroom teacher may not quite know, or how, they may not know how to do that quite yet. So the nice thing is I got a lot of good buy-in from my administrators early on, because they know that, I'm a competent teacher. I can handle a classroom. I can handle a classroom culture and dynamic, and I know the standards. And so I can easily fit things in. So like I said, for me, the first challenge, I think, is the big one for a lot of movement method type teachers, is keep it simple. I think my brain got real big, real fast, and you start thinking of great ideas, and they can get a little overwhelming and can catch you off guard pretty quickly. And what I learned early on was start simple. And I've learned that kiddos can be pretty engaged and have fun pretty simply. What I learned was that I can turn a lot of vocabulary, a lot of content knowledge, a lot of mathematics knowledge into simple games, such as Duck, Duck, Goose, lots of tag games, freeze tag, lots of relay races. So, and I would go way bigger, way sooner. I would try to think of massive projects and things, and you can find yourself overwhelmed quickly. And what I learned this year, what I think I've learned year 3 versus year 1, was go slow to go fast. Buy yourself the grace. Just take it at the pace that you want to sort of take the speed of your classroom. And now I've got tons of extra stuff. I've got things going all over here now, because I think I've got a better grasp on where I, from year 1 to year 3. So going back to administration, the big thing, here in the American schools is got to get your data, got to get your scores, got to get your kids to show growth. And so that one is a stressful one at first. Because, at the same time, I've got this movement method program that I really want to achieve, and I want to prove that it's great. But at the same time, I've got standards to teach, and I've got to make sure that these kids are growing and showing growth. And so that was a little stressful at first. The pleasant surprise is that I've found over the years is that when I'm doing fun and engaging activities, my students are engaged and they're enjoying it. and they end up achieving really well. I'll go into data and I'll go into some specifics like that maybe later. Rue, if you want to remind me later to go into some more of the board data, I can do that later. But I can tell you right now that in general, my students have grown in math the last couple of years, the last 2 years that we've been back to collecting some really hard numbers. I've shown growth in both 2 years with my students in math. I've shown steady growth. We just got our beginning to middle year growth in reading this year. And I think all but 2 of my students have shown above or well above typical growth for reading scores this year. And I can tell you that's from reduced testing. And that's one of the luxuries I get in my classroom, is that I don't have to test my kids over and over and over again. We just do a couple small tests once a month, and just to get a kind of a progress monitoring report. And then we get to move on to more of the engaging activities, which is kind of why I probably have such a waiting list in my classroom, because kiddos kind of know it's like, hey, you're not going to get tested a ton. You're going to be held accountable. There are things you're going to have to do and you're going to have to perform and show, but in the same time, that's sort of just a, kind of a minor detail to the whole class. Let's see here.
Can I ask you a question? Why
Please.
are you not having to test as much? Is that because you asked for that dispensation from the administration and they said sure, or does it come from some other thing? And if you had to ask the administration, why were they so quick to exempt you?
It's hard to pick into their brain exactly why they said yes so easily. Maybe that's trust. Maybe that's just perfect timing and luck. I think part of it was that I could show them that we have one district-wide test that all kids in our district that are taking. Well, 2 technically. Here in the United States, it's called DIBELS. Is one of them, which is a pretty standard reading test that all kids do to show fluency. The other one that we do is called STAR 360 Math and Reading, which gives you kind of a more encompassing idea of their math and reading skills, more of comprehension in the reading, and then math, just overall all the skills of math. I think I was able to convince them that by taking just these 2 tests, that we could still use that data to compare my students to the other 5th graders that were in my school, and we could compare them to the other kids in the district. We do also take the CMAS, which is our form of our state standard test as well. So technically, we do have the state exam that comes at the end of the year. So so essentially, there are 3 general universal tests that we could use to collect the data that we needed to compare students. So I think it was pretty easy for me to go to them and go, hey, do I have to take every end of a unit math test? Do I have to take every end of a unit reading test? Do I have to really take these? Because yes, while I can get some data out of them, they aren't really that useful, because our curriculums, our pacing guides sort of push us along anyways. And there isn't always a ton of time to go back and reteach lessons and reteach units anyways. So sort of these tests are just sort of pretty tests that we can get a nice score, and maybe you can show an overall score for a student at the end of it. But in general, the data wasn't really that useful, and it wasn't really helping me kind of move forward. So it was easy to convince them that these extra tests weren't that really reliable, and they weren't really that giving me any data that was helping me move forward into the future. Whereas the other tests I could use for anything that I needed to kind of backfill kiddos that needed extra help on different skills and whatnot.
Do you think just quickly, do you think that any teacher who's got a good track record in most state schools in America could go to their administration and say, hey, let's just go with these, main tests, let's not overtest the kids? Or do you think that your administration was unusually open-minded?
I don't think that my administration was naively too open-minded or anything like that. Just speaking for an American teacher in American school systems, what we're really trying to push for is, showing growth in our kiddos. How can we show growth in our students? And I think most districts are trying to find the biggest bang for their buck when it comes to collecting data. And so I think once you find some of those bigger systems that maybe your whole school or your whole district or region, however you describe it around the world. I think if you can find some of those tests and just say, hey, you know, this gives me good information, it gives me good knowledge, and it gives me what I need. I don't need the extra stuff. I think sometimes going to your administrator and convincing them that some of these extra tests are just fluff. You know, they're not, they give you a data point, but what real information are they really giving us? And is it giving me comparable data? Is it giving me data that I can really truly use to move forward and move on with? That was one of the big arguments that I gave and I put forth. I said, hey, you know, if you want the other classrooms in my building to take these, go for it. But really all they are is they're taking up time. And this was time that I got back to go do some of my more fun, engaging projects. And that was sort of my argument to him, is like, hey, let me show you better student engagement. Let me show you better behaviors in my classroom. Less students going up to the office for behavior referrals, less students needing to go up to see the counselor for more stress, less kids out of the classroom. Give me that time to engage my students and to go have fun, rather than sitting them down for another 50 minutes to take another test that in the end didn't really give us that much information or data in the first place. And I think if you kind of present it that way to your staff and to your administrators, you might find that they're like, okay, maybe we can minimize this one test here or this one test there. And that's time that you can then use with your students and with your peers better.
Another question about potential pushback. Did you get pushback from parents saying, oh shit, you know, our kids have ended up in this hippie class. We want our kids to be tested. And then if you did get that, how did you handle it?
Okay, I can answer that question in two interesting parts. I didn't get a lot of push at my first year. I was very engaged with the parents, and there were a lot of questions early on about like, well, are my kids just going to play all day? And so that was up to me to convince the parents that, no, I mean, just my personality is, I mean, I grew up on a farm. So like I'm going to work these kids. Like I'm going to work your students and your kiddos. And that's just my background. My personality is like, I do believe in hard work. It goes a long way. So, I mean, it took a lot of me to convince the parents that first year that, no, I promise you, I'm going to push your kids probably harder than you realize. Later, my second and third year, I didn't need to convince because the students did the work for me. They were easily able to go to the next grade level. And then I was able to start using my students that would come to me and actually help me present to the future fourth graders coming in. And they would just do it for me. I mean, kids would ask like, hey, are we going to play all day? Are we going to, and my students would raise their hand and go, nope, you're going to end up working. You're going to have homework. You're going to do things that are going to be challenging and hard. And Mr. Lang's going to give you those. And my parent surveys also prove that. Even my first year and my second year, I give a parent survey at the end, and the results very much said that they were very happy with the amount of academic rigor that I put into my classrooms. So yes, at first you're going to get those parents that are going to ask those questions, and that's up to you. You know, it's so much up to you as your own personal, how much rigor that you're going to give your students or not. And it was easy for me to convince the parents, like, I promise you, I'm going to work these kiddos and I'm going to get the most out of them, because in general, in the back of my teacher head, I'm going, well, hey, I've got data and I've got growth I've got to show. So I do have to make sure these kids are working hard. And I'd say the beautiful. Oh yeah.
So go on with that one. I have another question for you. Just finish what you were going to say.
Yeah. And I just say that's kind of one of the beauty of movement methods. I think because my students know that they're going to have fun and be engaged, when I need to kind of really kind of push them hard, they're willing to do so. And I think that's,
so it's like a give and take thing.
Go ahead.
So it's like a give and take thing.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
All right. So here's a question. Can you give us an example of a pain point that you find is always difficult to teach? For example, some math thing. And how did movement method help?
Boy, I think math I think is easy with movement methods, surprisingly. I think maybe it's just because I'm going to take reading as a different one. we have a curriculum that teaches some pretty high level reading, and it's pretty rigorous and it's not very engaging. We do a lot of the Renaissance, which the reading is pretty dry and boring. We do the Reformation, the Protestant Catholic Reformation, which is an absolute snoozer of a curriculum unit to teach. It is super boring and the kids have no idea what you're teaching or talking about. And we do, and now as an adult, we can look at all these and find interesting things to find in there. We'll teach Mesoamerica about the Aztec and the Inca and the Maya. And again, to me, I find that to be all quite interesting. That to me, our curriculum was pretty challenging because here in America, our school is called a Title I school. So 50% or more of our families are free or reduced lunches. So we come from a pretty low socioeconomic population. And these are kiddos that don't have background in a lot of these topics. So you're asking these kiddos not to just engage in high level reading, but you're asking them to have the background knowledge about areas that they have no knowledge about whatsoever. And so where movement method comes in really handy is that when we're doing Mesoamerica, I could take the students outside and we do a handful of projects. For example, one of the ideas is we talk about the Aztec and their floating gardens that they made. So we go outside and we make chinapas, is what they're called. We go out and we gather grass and we bundle grass and then we put it in these water bins and we float it and we take a contest to see who can float the most weight on top of their floating garden. We go out to our outdoor area. If I have time, I'll try to show it to you if my Wi-Fi connection works. We'll go and we'll dig up a bunch of the clay and the dirt and we'll make bricks. We'll learn how to make bricks and we turn those into Mayan temples. We have rats in our classroom. So we always try to make who can make the best Mayan temple for our rats. That kind of builds in that engagement. When we get to the Renaissance is pretty easy because kids love medieval and they love that. So when we teach, right before that, we actually teach Don Quixote, which Don Quixote can be kind of comical and fun, but it can be a hard read for our kiddos. But I mean, what kid can't understand Don Quixote when you're bouncing on bouncy balls and you got pool noodles as your lances or your swords and you're jousting whiteboards and whacking whiteboards and knocking them off walls to like answer curriculum questions or vocabulary or character questions such as that. Renaissance. We will pretend that we're Michelangelo painting the Sistine Chapel and we'll go under our tables and we'll paint under our desks. We'll turn into Leonardo da Vinci and we'll create, usually we do this on Valentine's Day. So we'll create different inventions to help collect Valentines. So again, movement methods, I think for me, just takes really challenging kind of dry, bland curriculum and just brings it to life. And I know it's doing this because I'll have kids months later come back to me and go, Mr. Lang, this reminds me of, and they'll bring me up something that was months ago. And I'm like, there you go. That's it. That right there shows me and proves to me that this stuff is engaging and working. It's not necessarily that they're regurgitating it back on a test, but they're just months later drawing connections from something that we did previous to something that we're doing now. And it's like, that's the aha. I mean, I'll have kids come back to me on a state exam when they're not supposed to be talking to me and they'll raise their hand and I'll come over and they'll just point to their computer screen and go, Mr. Lang, look, it's Leonardo da Vinci. It's the Renaissance. It's everything that we learn. It's like, brilliant. Don't talk to me anymore. It's a test. Don't talk. But they'll like look at the screen and I'm like, that's it. That's all I need you to do is like that. My activity that we did reminded you of something months later. And that's the beautiful part of it. I think what I'm doing is I'm taking what can be otherwise just very static and stagnant ideas and making them come to life and making the kids engage in them. And it really shows.
I love going under your desks and doing the Sistine Chapels. It's absolutely brilliant. How do you tackle the Reformation? Fascinating, apart from selecting one to be burned as a witch, of course, but
just one highlight area that we do. So there's a section where it has to do with Martin Luther and a King Frederick Wilhelm of Germany, and then the Pope. And they are having this sort of lover's quarrel where the Pope is mad at Martin Luther, wanting him to come to Rome to be, put on trial. But then the king of Germany says, no, you can come here. I'll protect you. Like, and the Pope's angry at this, and it's just going back and forth. So I have the kids actually just get up into some small groups, and we sort of turn it into an American reality show drama where I make, somebody be the Pope and somebody's got to be Martin Luther. And they got this small little worksheet that they have to fill out. So I'll make them go, and they have to read in their books and go find evidence and go find all these answers in the book. And then I have them turn into a reality show where they have to get in there really kind of, I don't know, forgive me if anybody's from Hollywood or anybody, but it's like, I really get them in this like, well, and they have to get really dramatic about it and have to really ham it up the parts. And if you're the Pope, you really got to get angry and scream and whine. And if you're Martin Luther, you got to act like the angry sibling. It's like, well, I'm not going back to there. I don't like that guy anymore. So we turn it into a big reality spoof, and the kids have a blast with it.
Fantastic. Yeah. Okay, tell us about your outdoor classroom. Two things. A, did you have it at first? B, if you didn't, how did you get it and how have you developed it?
All right. My outdoor classroom. So we had the area. We had this sort of hollowed out area that had never really been used. And if Bianca was on here, Bianca gets some of this credit. So if she watches this later, she can get credit for this too. Because at the same time, her and I were sort of working together a little bit. But we had this beautiful little outdoor area out here, and it just wasn't being utilized, wasn't getting used. So it was Bianca actually who first kind of started with the idea of getting these outdoor rocks set up so kids had an area to go sit. And then she got connected with our local Boy Scouts and Eagle Scouts group. And we actually had another former coworker and teacher whose younger brother was an Eagle Scout, and they were looking to do a project to help a community school. So that's where our garden area got developed, because of just kind of reaching out to our local Boy Scout and Eagle Scout group. But that's really, we did not have an outdoor area. We did not have anything established. And we had several potential areas, but we just had this sort of underutilized area right in the back of the school that did get to be the beginning of what is our outdoor classroom area. Now, the beautiful thing about it too is that that's where we started developing, and we started working out there. But we actually have a little bit of property here, not too much, but we do have a whole kind of circumference of area around our building. And by going outside and starting out there into our one area, we quickly realized that we have other potential areas that work really well. We have a south-facing side of the school that is much quieter during recess times. So I'm able to take my classes out to another part of the school where, when recess is going on, where it's a lot quieter, where my students can work. And then there's north parts of the school, which again are great for some of the other classrooms. So that was part of the nice thing about convincing administration, was to show them that, hey, while I'm going to be utilizing this area, there are actually other quiet areas that are far reaching in the far corners of our property that can be utilized. And in explaining to administration, you don't need anything. You don't need much. A shade tree goes a long way. A few rocks go a long way. A quiet place, just simple little areas where the kids can just be outside is all you really need.
Have you
We
used
also have
unlikely things like corridors or car parks or curbs?
Absolutely. You'd be amazed with the little areas that are just behind a building or, in the far corners of your property that work really well. And the more you go to them, the better they work. Just like many staff, you'll find the first times you go to these, the kids don't really know how to take it, and it's really exciting. And so I always highly suggest, the first times you go to areas, let them go ahead and be like high energy areas at first to like get the energy out, get the curiosities and get all that. And the more you come back to these areas, the more they get comfortable, the more they settle in, and the more they actually become sort of calmer working areas that they then start to establish as a working outdoor classroom versus outdoor in its recess time. So that's pretty handy so that's kind of a tip that I've learned over the years. It's a little high energy at first, but as you come back and revisit those areas, the calmer and the more comfortable they get in those areas, and they actually start to see it as a classroom. And also one area.
Let's say you couldn't go outside and you needed to use areas inside the school building. what have you used? What have you found some unlikely things that have worked?
Oh man. I'm gonna walk you into our hallway for and hopefully the fear of my Wi-Fi is good enough out in these hallways. I think I'm good. I'm gonna just take you a quick lap. We're in the middle of winter and it's pretty cold, and taking these city kids outside all the time is not always a feasible thing. And I want everybody to know that I have a lot of city kids who we go outside, but these city kids do not always come dressed all the time and come prepared for outdoor. And there are a lot of times where I've got to keep my little babies inside and keep them warm. So I'm going to quickly show you some other areas that we also use. This hallway, so we share our hallway with preschool, our speech, and our occupational therapist. So this hallway is just a hallway, but this hallway easily turns into a kind of an area where my students quickly go to do their work. I have a ton of kids who come over here, and it doesn't seem like much, but this heater pumps out tons of heat. And my kids love sitting by the door down here. If you come upstairs, I hope my Wi-Fi is still working. Now, technically, we're upstairs in the first and second grade wing, but this area gets highly utilized. Tons of kids come up here and work just because they want to come up by the windows and kind of get a little glimpse of being outdoors. So I'll have a ton of kids come up here and do a lot of their. And this is all happening while first grade is going on and having their day and things are happening. And then I'm going to quickly walk us over here to another highly used area. These little nooks and crannies right here. These little nooks and crannies. This is a pretty popular spot for my students to come and visit right here. There's a little nook in here, as you can see, just another entrance area right in here where I get students to kind of come and sit around. But this happens quite often in my classroom, where I will kind of teach my main lesson and I will sort of keep them in the classroom for 30 minutes. And well, 30 minutes, 40 minutes, depending on the lesson. And then there's just all these little nooks down here, kind of completing the circle back down to my classroom. But I will go ahead and teach my lesson that I need to teach. And when I'm done and I feel pretty confident that they've got the instruction that they need, I will send them out. And I'll just say, all right, the routine is pretty simple. We treat it a lot like a rafting trip or a hiking trip. If you feel confident that you can go on your own and would only need you'd only need your peers for help, go. Make yourself comfortable. Go sit where you're going to be best engaged, and go do it. And then I'll just kind of go and I'll just make laps and just check in on kiddos as they're going about doing their thing. But that is how we utilize kind of an indoor-outdoor classroom. Is after my reading or my math lessons, I let them go. And then the kiddos who know if they need more support, more help, the idea is teaching them kind of how to be more independent, how to be thinkers who can think on their own and make smart and wise choices. So if they need to stay with me for a little longer, they usually stay in the classroom and we get kind of a more intimate, one-on-one or 3-on-1 kind of with the teacher and get a little more help. And when they feel confident, they move and they leave my classroom. So you can very often come down to my classroom and find it just me and 2 other kids, and you'd wonder where all my other kiddos are at, and they're all spread out all around the hallways and upstairs. And often I tell my peers and I tell my administration, let me know if they're goofing around or screwing around. Rarely do I ever get an issue. I mean, they kind of get that feeling and that sense of independence, and they get that like, oh, he's letting us kind of make our own choices and go. And rarely do I ever, if anything, I'm probably the one that's harder on them all the time, kind of nitpicking and getting them. But rarely do you ever hear issues. I mean, they're up there, they're working. I've had my bosses come and say they're fantastic. They're sitting there working, asking each other. They get up from their one group, they walk to another group to confirm some answers and talk to each other, and they go back and they go to work. So we do that a lot in the wintertime out here because it's freezing cold some mornings.
Do you find that this helps with behaviors, with not having the kids sort of in a hothouse sitting together in the same room all the time? If they can disperse and get sort of to some degree breaks from each other, it also lessens the, you know, just the sheer human pressure cooker-ness of it all. Has that helped?
Absolutely. I mean, you know, and I want to be a realist too. And I want people to, you know that, you know, I am not the type that says everything is perfect and everything works out perfectly for every kiddo. I want, you know, I'm a very much a realist type of person. And it, for certain kiddos, it does take a little extra adjustment and work with them. You know, sometimes it's too much at first for them. Some kiddos I get where, you know, they're very quiet and they just don't know how to even make a choice because there's almost too many choices sometimes for them. But I would say in general, 80 to 90% of my kiddos for the last about 3 to 5 years, they come and I rarely have office referrals anymore. I just don't get them. I mean, most times I can just look at a kiddo, pull them out in the hall if we're having an issue and just talk to me. What's the deal? Like, what's going on? You know, how's your day? What's not going right now? And I would say 95% of the time, gosh, 99% of the time, a kiddo just needs a break, comes talk to me, take a break, take a moment, go take some laps in the hallway, and they come back to my classroom ready to go again. I find that to be really, I mean, man alive, being at this school, like being a Title I school, we get a lot of kiddos who have really, really tough backgrounds that are coming from a million different negative situations. And I haven't sent a kid to the office for a legitimate office referral in over 5 years. And I do believe a lot of that is the idea that they just want to be down here. They don't want to miss what they might miss if they have to get sent up to the office. And the few kiddos that have to, they really pretty quickly on, there's a message or a written note from our dean of students that says, hey, they apologize. They were sorry for what they did. They just kind of wanted to be done and come back down to class. And that happens, you know, and that tends to be sort of what I notice in my classroom is like kids want to be down here. They don't want to leave very long. Actually, if anything, my students who do need to go for extra help in math or reading, sometimes that is my struggle because those same kiddos don't want to go to their reading interventionist or their math interventionist. They usually want to stay down and do whatever work we're doing. So sometimes I actually have to convince them like, hey, what you're doing is good for you. Like, you know, I always have to tell most teachers, I'm like, sorry, I didn't want to create a battle for you. Sorry about that. But like, you know, like I said, in general, kids want to be down here and they don't want to miss out what they might be missing, you know, and if they leave the classroom, they always think they're missing something. And I love it. I play that to my advantage.
For your outdoor stuff that you've developed, did you have to look for finance? And if so, how did you find it?
Yes, I have to look for financing. At first, in my early years, it was a lot of looking for donations. It was signing up for grants. And I've got a little 17-month-old at home. So like about 2 years ago, I was kind of like, this is exhausting. I can't keep looking for more money and grants and all that. That was tough. But being a Title I school, I was able to work with my principal and find Title I funds that we were able to use. It's pretty easy to use movement methods in Title I in coordination because the idea of Title I says these are kiddos who come from a low socioeconomic population and they don't get the same things that you would normally get at, say, a higher end school. And so with that, it's pretty easy to write up a request for some outdoor materials because everything, you know, relates back to science or math or reading instruction in one way or another. So it was pretty easy to get some funding that way. And that's been a big, big help. So the last couple of years, my principal has really helped me out and has granted me some Title I funds that we've been able to use to get a lot of the materials. So that'd be one area I would look into is any Title I, any STEM technology, anytime you get any math or reading grants, there's lots of little things that can go a long way like that. And I look at my administration and I say, hey, Amazon's really cheap. You know, $200 from Amazon is a lot cheaper than, you know, $10,000 in reading curriculum that sometimes we have to make these big, big decisions on. You can get a lot with little. And I think that's also helped me with Miss Case, our principal. Talking to her is just, I don't need much. I just need enough to kind of get these few activities going, and that goes a long way. And So yeah, early on at first, I think showing the willingness to go look for grants, look for donations, I think does help out quite a bit. And I think after you're willing to try that a couple of years, that kind of convinces administration, I think, to help and say, okay, you know what, here, I've got some money here, I've got some money here, go ahead and see what you can do. And in fact, I've actually been pretty blessed to actually have more money than I need. And now I'm trying to figure out how to get some extra field trips going in and stuff like that, because traveling is expensive here in the States.
I know you've done some projects with trees, not just with ecology, but also the economics around ecology. Can you talk to us about that a little bit?
Yeah. Well, let's see here. So Bianca, again, she's fantastic, and some donations from you guys and stuff to help put some trees up. We've got a handful of trees out in our garden area and then out in a different section right there. And the overall goal and hope is that we're growing these trees in time to then kind of use them later on in a cycle, to use them for different Christmas, making wreaths, maybe even cutting one or two down in a donation for a Christmas tree, possibly. These trees are slow growing. I don't know. I might be in my 60s before these trees actually get going. That's one thing I'm learning. But so we've been getting some tree donations, and through that we've been growing. Those trees have been in the ground for the last couple of years now, growing and growing. And each year the hope is that we can cycle one through every year to help the kiddos and for another fundraiser of some sort. So right now that's kind of one of those slow ones that I was really ambitious at first, and then realizing I have to slow my roll a little bit, and I can't will the trees to grow any faster, which I would love to, but. Oh, and
these are Christmas trees, right? Are these, just to clarify?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
Yep. And we got 4 aspen trees. I've got 4 baby aspens out there. And I tell you, the lesson I give to the little ones is don't break our little baby aspen tree branches, because I've got little ones that are constantly out there. I'm like, oh my gosh. Yeah. So that's a whole nother side one. But yeah, so that's kind of our hope. And every year we're trying to find new areas to grow these trees, and because we are right in the middle of an urban area. So our goal is that every year we're trying to just plant a couple more trees somewhere out in the perimeter to hopefully give to more outdoor areas, more shade areas for more classes in the future.
Cool. All right. So listen, I've asked the questions so far. Cade is clearly a mine of information, and there's a lot more than I've asked. Chaps, do you want to jump in with your questions? Unmute your asses if you want to.
Okay, shall I go first then?
Mm-hmm.
Cade, I am looking into a way into schools in the Netherlands to start training teachers. So I have trained movement methods, but individual teachers and parents and speech therapists, but not like a whole school. Could you give me some tips of how to get my foot in the door?
All right. I think it starts with oh boy. I think it's, for me, it was finding engagement in the teaching staff to start with, right? I mean, my first buy-in was, I'm sitting here at year 15 and I just needed a reinvigoration. So the first thing was finding excitement with my peers, helping my peers see the enjoyment in it, seeing the little ideas that I would give my peers, like, hey, you know what? You're bored? Here, go try this. Hey, you're having struggles with your kids? Hey, try this. Like, just try this one thing. Just try this one thing. And what you quickly find out is your peers are like, this was awesome. I loved it. My kids were smiling and happy. And it was reminding me exactly why I got into education in the first place. I think that was part of it. So buying that appreciation within the staff was first, and then showing that a little bit to my administration. Like, look, kids are smiling. They're not going to the principal. They're engaged. They're having fun. They're going and telling you all these fun things that they're doing. That's kind of step number 2. Now, then administration goes, well, great, your kids are having fun and they're smiling, but that's not what I'm interested in. I'm interested in the cold, hard data and the facts. And then you come and say, okay, well, just give me a year. Just give me a year and I'll prove to you that I can get more with less. You know, I can actually test less and get more engagement and more growth out of those kiddos. You know, it's now been I am not a data person. I never got an education because of the data. I mean, I'm a believer in the whole child and, you know, making kids get out of school, just appreciating the bigger idea of education in general and where it can take you in the future. That's always been me. But being a teacher long enough, you realize like, I got to play the game. Part of the game is data and they want to see their data. And I've been able the last 2 years to show them exactly that, getting some of the highest math growth in the district, getting 95% of my readers to be at typical or above growth for this first half of the year, showing them that data in the end and saying, I didn't have to test them more. I didn't need to get more, I didn't have to give them more homework assignments and more worksheets. I was able to grow and keep a sustainable classroom through that. So it's kind of a slow, there's a couple of slow things. First, your peers, you want to find some growth, some buy-in from your peers. Then you show that same buy-in to your administration and you show them, look, we've got teachers who are interested in this and they're enjoying it and they're really appreciating it and liking it and having fun with it. And then you can eventually show them some of the growth and the data that can come with it in time. And with that, then comes the funding. And I think finally the funding is that last part that really sort of helps ease the burden, is then showing them the proof that your class is working. And along with that, like Rue was saying earlier, I have a waiting list of 25 families every year. And then, I mean, that speaks volumes. You know, when you put this up there, it's not hard for parents to also see that this is good for kids. My school used to be an IB school. For many of you who know what International Baccalaureate is, that program, that's a beautiful program. I loved it, but very hard to explain to families what that program means and what it is. Movement methods, it speaks for itself. I mean, families can understand the idea of kids engaging in moving and engaging in projects. And so the families come signing up pretty quickly. And when all of a sudden you get a list of, you know, an extra 25 to 50 families signing up and there's no room, how can the administration deny that at some point? You know, they have to look at those numbers and go, hey, I mean, your own families want this. And so that's kind of where I'm at right now, is trying to help convince my administration that we're ready to grow to a 4th grade classroom. My big vision for my school is at least having one movement method classroom in each grade level. And that's still a small. I mean, I'd love to transform this whole school into a movement method school. But right now, you know, easily just saying, look, we're ready for a 4th grade class. We've got the resources, we've got the room, we've got the ability to show it. And then really growing it to a 3rd grade classroom and a 2nd, a 1st, and a kindergarten. So
if Corolla is needing to go cold to school administrators in the Netherlands where she's at and say, hey, there's this program, you know, would you be able to step in and help her zoom in, talk to these administrators, give them the skinny on?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh, I'd love to, you guys. Trust me. I mean, I would love to help in any way I can. I mean, you know, yes, whatever I can do to help, just holler and let me know what I can do to help. I mean, trust me, I have been swimming and practicing and doing this thing for about 5 years, and I'm excited about it. And I've told Rue for years, keep me down in my little cave and let me make mistakes. Let me just keep screwing up and learning what not to do, so that I have confidence and belief that I can come and talk to people and say, look, I've got the goods and the bads. I've got it all. Like, I can tell you what not to do for sure. Like that, I'm good.
Grand. So maybe
Thank
you guys.
Cade. Yeah, that's brilliant, Cade. Because I don't know if you know, but my position is slightly different. I'm not in a school anymore. I quit my school job about 6 years ago. So yeah, I'm looking now as an outside trainer to get back in. So yeah, I really appreciate your help. Thank you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I'm going to be working with Bianca to help me tighten up my data so I can at least have some nice, good, beautiful little data points to also show too. I do believe that is a big aspect that I think administration wants to see as well. And I've got the data to show that, you know, kids can grow. This can be done.
And just as a thing with Bianca too, remember Bianca's going to be finishing up her PhD, looking at movement method pretty soon. And so there'll be quite a lot of data there for everyone to use. But I do think, yeah, if Cade, if you can be there to like be on Zoom in meetings when people are trying to sell to school administrations, I can imagine that would be good. Because I think one of the other things that certainly Bianca said, and you seem to have intimated a little bit, is that movement method in schools seems to address teacher burnout, and therefore teacher staff turnover to some degree. Would you say that's true?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, and I will be real and I will look at people and say it can feel overwhelming if you feel like you're the only one doing a whole program at first. And that would be where I would be very helpful to step in and go, hey, there's a lot of ways I probably can give you pointers to start in small baby steps. And so that it doesn't feel super overwhelming, and how to start slow to go fast. I think that's one thing I learned sort of the hard way. And absolutely. I mean, once you know that you've got some background support, it's fun. It's fun to go in and exciting to just see kids and they what are we going to do today? What are we going to do today? And it's like, whatever we want to do, let's make it happen. Let's go.
You are the magic school bus.
A lot.
Okay. Any other questions, chaps?
English.
I have a
I have a question.
Oh,
Yeah, go.
Who is it first?
Henrik, you have to be a gentleman and let Jane go first.
Yes, I am
this
No,
always
is a- this
I
is a
insist, Henrik,
gentleman's
you go
area.
first.
Oh, now Jane's a gentleman.
We have a standoff. Yeah.
He's a gentleman. Yeah. But you did get in a nanosecond quicker, Jane. So off you go.
Okay, I won't be long anyway. Well, Cade, I think you're a rock star. I've loved listening to you today. Thank you for sharing all of this. I have more observational questions than data questions from a social and self-advocacy point of view within classrooms where there's obviously high volume and high numbers of children that are coming from backgrounds that have various dynamics at play, and how that presents in a classroom situation within the dynamics of each other, and what you've observed in using movement method as an approach how you've observed the relationships evolve within that approach within their own little ecosystem, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I'll probably ask you to ask a follow-up question after I talk, just to make sure I get all. One thing that I've really appreciated and really enjoyed, and I've gotten great feedback from some of my other peers that are outside, reading interventions. My classrooms come out as being very social, very used to working with each other. Just because in my classroom, you can't just sit and not do anything all day. Like, you are going to be forced to get up and move and socialize and interact. And in my classroom, it could look beautiful and ugly all at the same time. But by doing so, it's the one thing I think all of us adults are seeing as an issue, is like how to help these kiddos become themselves and garner their own abilities to socialize outside of their skin, and how to figure all that out. And in my classroom, you have to, you're gonna have to move and be in different groups, and I'm going to break you into different groups, and you're going to get to be with your peers to start with, and you're going to get to be next to the ones that you trust the most. And then as soon as you get comfortable, I'm going to pull you away, and I'm going to get you out, and I'm going to get you uncomfortable in different groups. And we're going to talk about how to interact and be a part of that. And I've got my kids who do not love to do that, but in general, these ones are kiddos too, who when I'm down in my classroom, I can't see it as much, but when I go talk to the music teacher or I go talk to the media teacher, you're like, oh my gosh, Cade, if you would have known this kid last year, if you'd have known that boy or that girl last year, they're a different kid this year. They're a different person. They talk more, they solve their problems more, they interact more, they're more positive. They're not, it's weird in the classroom. Sometimes you don't always see it because you're so close to it. But it's beautiful to get that confirmation when you go and talk to your reading specialist who goes, oh my gosh, Cade, your kids on our retells during reading, your kids tell way more than the average kiddo. They just talk and make connections and talk. It's beautiful to see. And then when you talk to the music teacher, the PE teacher, oh my gosh, your kids problem solve. Your kids don't sit there and yell at each other constantly about the problem. They solve the problem. They figure out ways to solve problems because they're just used to having to socialize and work together. And it's like, we've already had the problem downstairs in my classroom at a small level to sort of iron it out and to talk about it and to figure it out. So that way, when they go and they leave my classroom, whether it's recess or whether it's another enrichment or whatever it is, they seem like they're able to handle these situations much better. And, a lot of that confirmation really comes from my peers who have made these observations and helped me out with it. So that's been one. And I tell you, it doesn't always feel that way. It definitely feels like sometimes down in my classroom, it feels like the beehive is buzzing and I am getting stung constantly. And sometimes you just don't know and feel it until you walk out. And like, okay, they just got to go to music. And then they come back from music and they're like, they were awesome. They were the best. That was like, I love it. My art teacher constantly is like, I love your kids. Your kids are the best. They just do so many good things. They work together. They clean the classroom. And it's truly the confirmation you get from all the others that are like, okay, what's happening in here is beautiful and it is working. So
That's
follow
very
up.
good.
I probably didn't answer all of that.
No, you totally did. You totally did. It was just observational. And so if I'm understanding correctly, you've been like a satellite in your school system doing movement method in your classroom. And then you're like spreading slowly the tentacles through the rest of the school. So what has been the experience then in your kids that have then gone on to the next level where now the learning approach goes back to a traditional model? Do you find there's kickback with that after they've had sort of a freedom of different expression? No.
The only kickback is the only kickback is a lot of them come back and go, I wish I was in 5th grade again. I wish I could come back. That's about the worst kickback you get.
Yeah.
I actually find that a lot of my students, even ones who academically struggled, go into middle school and do beautifully, and are coming back with A's and B's. Kiddos that, in general, kiddos that are getting probably, I would have imagined maybe C's and D's are going up into middle school, getting A's and B's. And I think a lot of that has to do with the approach of not just teaching them one stagnant way, having them have to problem solve in different methods and different ways and socializing and solve that math problem with wood and cutting wood and doing a lot. And we also have an innovation program at our 6th grade. So when our kiddos leave this building and go to our middle school, there is an innovation program that's not exactly movement methods, but it does a lot of similar ideas. And I always tell them, I'm like, you want my kids. You want the kids that are in my classroom. You want those kids because they will make your program flourish even more. And from what I find out, they do. My kiddos that go to that program just keep going and flourishing. And the ones who don't get in that program, they usually come back and say it's a little dull and boring, but their grades they're coming back with A's and B's constantly. And kiddos, and I usually do go pick on the ones who I think would struggle. And I always try to find those ones who I think maybe would struggle. And hey, how you doing back in a regular classroom? And they said they tended, other than it being boring, they seem to pull A's and B's pretty well. So.
Awesome. Yeah. Teaching them how to learn, huh? That's so cool. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, Henrik.
Okay, hi. Cade, so great to hear you and your experience, and I'm trust in this program and I do it every day, and I believe in the results. And we have great results also from the University of Cologne in the school nearby here in Aalen. In the primary school, we have great results there. And to become more and more teachers, more and more schools. It is sometimes not so easy. The teacher says always, we have so hard work every day. And I try to explain, please do this program and you have fun with your work and you are healthy with your work and you are successful in your classroom. And my question is, are there more other teachers in your school or in your neighborhood or in your community? They are working like you, they are looking to you and asking you, is it come more and more, or they are only looking?
I'll start that with two. I'll start with my negative. I am a practitioner and I am horrible at promoting. Like, I have been in my little bat cave, which is what I call it, practicing movement methods. My negative is I have to probably start getting out more and promoting it even more. Now, the people in my building know about it. I've got a few fourth grade teachers who are pretty on board, and one who's informally doing a lot of different movement method stuff right now. I've got tons of the first grade and the kindergarten teachers who are doing little things here and there. There's that bug in every teacher's ear that's just like that. My job's hard. I got to get all these things done every day. I got to get this done every day. I got to get these things done. I got to get these things done. And I hear that, and I've been that teacher. So I look at them and I go, but do you remember what it was like before you got to be a teacher and all the fun, beautiful things you thought you were going to do and you maybe aren't doing? Like, what's one thing you want to do to have fun? Like, what's one thing that you wish you could do that you don't get to do in your teaching job? And go do it. Like, just go get creative and do it. I am not an art person whatsoever. I've done more art down in my classroom than I can imagine I would have ever done. We're singing Christmas carols. You don't want me singing, but here we are singing Christmas carols down in here and analyzing the lyrics to Christmas carols because it's fun and the kids are engaged in it and they enjoy doing it. And I find that, like, to me, looking at most peers and just telling them, like, go find one thing you just wish you could do in your classroom. And if you have to, close your door, lock your door, and just do it. And you will walk out of that day and that lesson happy with a smile on your face. And what? You don't want to replicate that again? You don't want to do that one more time? And then what you'll find out is your kids loved it and they'll want to do it again and they'll be engaged. And that's kind of where the avalanche and the snowball grows right there is, starting small, doing one thing, have fun with it, go for it. And so I think there are teachers all over America who are already doing this, who are already sneakily waiting, they think that they're breaking a rule by doing something fun and engaging for their students because heaven forbid, you got to get them on that computer and read more. That book's got to be open. You got to read more. And I'm all about kids in a book reading more, students in print. That's a good thing. That's nothing wrong with that. But I just think we think that the only way to get kids to learn is to do, more worksheets, more questions, more quizzes, more homework. And it's like, that doesn't have to be the only way. And like I said, now I'm finally getting to show the results of going, look, we've done less and we've gotten more with it. We've done less worksheets, less tests, and we've gotten more results out of it. And so hopefully, like, this information gets to be spread to more of the teachers around. Right now, I'm finding that struggle right now. I've got a bunch of kindergarten, first grade, and second grade teachers who are really kind of stressing out about reading scores, trying to get our readers to read more. And I keep whispering to them all the time. I'm like, go make a vocabulary flashcard game. Just put those sight words on flashcards and go play Duck, Duck, Goose. There's a million different Duck, Duck, Goose games where you can wrap through all those little fluency cards and the kids will love it and they'll beg you to go do it again. Go get little cards and go hide them under little cones and do a scavenger hunt with all those sight words and just go do it once. And yes, it may have taken a little extra time, but they'll love it and they'll remember what they did and you'll get a big bang for your buck. And I think that teachers just have to kind of find that little bit of courage, which isn't that big, to go try it. And what they find out in the end is that they love it. And they're like, I want to do that again.
Yes, thank you. I'm with you.
I wonder if what's needed is some sort of, in-person and or Zoom pitch, from you and Bianca and others like you, Alex, I know you're lurking on this and you've been applying this in schools as well. Should we think about putting together some sort of pitch to schools that automatically addresses what every reluctant teacher is going to say and what every reluctant administrator is going to say? And then it's a law of averages. You know, if you hit a certain number of schools with this, a certain minority are going to say, sure, let's give it a go. And then to concentrate on those ones, rather than try to talk people into things, if you know what I mean. I mean, what do you think? Do you guys think that could work?
Well, to me, you're preaching to the choir a little bit. And like I said, my weakness is sort of the promoting area. I'm kind of person's like, hey, I'm doing it because I love it and it works. And if you can't see what I'm doing and can't see the results for yourself, then I'll be in my back cave continuing to do great work, and so be it. So that's where I do believe that if there was a simple way to just show teachers and administrators, it doesn't take a lot, doesn't really take much funding at all, just takes a willingness to give it a go and have some fun in the short run of doing it.
Okay. Any other burning questions? Because I have another question, but I've asked a lot of them, so I'll shut up for a bit. Anyone else want to kick in? Counting. All right, then I'm going to ask my question. Talk to us about the big I, inclusion.
All right. Not too bad, and again, I am a realist, so I am hard on myself. So I always think I could be doing better. I've got two young boys down here right now, Austin and Taj, with high needs. And I still feel like I should do more. You asked my parents who are in here, they love it. They love coming down here. They love when the boys are down here working. They would not ask me to do anything more, but inclusion is so easy because to me, they all have work to do. I mean, one big thing I think with inclusion is getting our kiddos to work together. And a lot of the games and activities that I do in my classroom just so naturally build towards including everybody, and everybody gets a role and everybody gets to play a part. Everybody's part of the game. Everybody's part of doing something. And it's super easy and quick to adjust. Right now, Taj is nonverbal, doesn't really, he's on the spectrum of autism where, he kind of just enjoys working by himself, working on his tablet. But anytime we have an outdoor game where he's up and moving and he's hopping on the rocks, he's in it. So we already know where Taj really has his beautiful balance of when it's physical things and it's outdoor, he's all about it. And he's jumping in and he wants to be part of those activities in those games. So it's easy to include him in those. And and my classroom's always buzzing too. My classroom's always moving around. So I've got other kiddos who are not even in my classroom, different grade level kiddos who are up in our high needs rooms who come down and visit our rats quite often. Anytime those kids need a kind of a break or they get their reward, I've got kiddos coming in and just visiting with the rats quite often. Austin is also nonverbal. He's our other one. Austin is a lot more social though. He wants to have a peer with him at all times. He is always looking to have some peer. So again, it works really well in my classroom that at any moment I can ask any of my students to go work with Austin or pull Austin. A lot of times he doesn't want the adult to help him. He wants a peer. So I've got, at the drop of my hat, I've got 10 different kids who will raise their hand and pull Austin in the group to have him work. And they're working on their own academic skills as well. And anytime they're maybe just working on their own skill and it's kind of, hey, this is something they've got to focus on, even though it's not exactly our thing. I've got 10 kids who will drop anything they're doing to go work and be a peer-to-peer work with those kiddos.
So basically you're saying that you're a resource. Hold on. So your classroom is becoming an inclusion resource for other classes in the school.
Oh, it's beautiful. I love it. I mean, I love it. They're always coming down to see what we're doing. They're always like, if we're doing a fun game and an activity or doing something engaging and one of those kiddos walks from speech and they're on the way back to their room upstairs, hey, you got an extra minute? Stay down here. Come play with us a little bit. If they sneak a peek in the door and they see us doing something, come on in, check it out, see what we're doing. And like, my parents are rock stars. They're the real rock stars. And they're constantly like, ooh, we want we want so-and-so to be in your class next year. It's like, sweet, bring them in. Like it's a perfect segue to where they can leave anytime they want to go do some of the work that they need to do. And they can come down into my classroom at any moment and jump right into the activities that we're doing. And even if it's something and they're having a bad day and they don't want to engage, we don't drop it. We don't miss a step. We get to keep moving on. They can work on their tablet. They can sit back and be calm and do what they want to do. And when they're ready to join, they come and join with us.
The rats, are you the only classroom in your school that has animals? Was there resistance? How did you get through that resistance?
So yes, I am the only one with rats, and it's probably just because they're rats and everybody hears the word rats and freaks out, which I'm sure some of you are. I wish they were here. I've got my cage right over here, but they're actually at my house because of Christmas break. And it's cold, so I
You're
told them
supposed to eat turkeys at Christmas, not rats. Didn't anyone? Okay, well, I guess it's hard times now with the war. Yeah.
Oh, they're so plump. These little boys are so plump and juicy. They're like, I got 3 boys this year, and if you've ever seen a male rat, they are big, but they're super soft and they're cuddly and they're awesome. Actually, they're fantastic. They are big, but they are cozy and lazy and awesome, and the kids love them. So we have had. Let me think, about 5 years ago, we had a teacher who I think had like hamsters or something once, which I'm surprised. I don't know how they got away with it. The reason we can get away with rats is because rats are hypoallergenic. Little did you know, if people didn't know this, rats do not actually they're hypoallergenic. So they're not going to be shedding and getting fur all over the place or anything like that. And they're quite clean animals. Surprisingly, they're self-cleaning, self-managing. They are fantastic. We actually have
how did you get through the resistance though? Because I presume other teachers might have wanted animals. Was there resistance, and how did you get through it?
There wasn't really a lot of resistance, surprisingly. I already had the legal document that allowed my students to handle the rats. So I already had parent support. I think a lot of it was parent support. I already had parent support and parent buy-in. And I think that's a big thing here in the States is like, if you get parent support and parent buy-in, you can get a lot because, you're not going to argue with the parents. If the parents all kind of want it and agree with it, that goes a long way here in our classrooms. So had a lot of parent support, a lot of parent buy-in, proving that the rats were hypoallergenic, so that allergies were not an issue. And from there on out, it was, okay, Lang, if you want rats in your classroom, you can go ahead and have them. Like, okay. And you could prove the social emotional part of it. The kids love them. It's crazy. Like you'll have your handful of kids that I don't want to touch them. I don't want anything to do with them. And even at the end of the year, they're petting them and holding them as it is. But I tell you what, those kiddos, they pull them out, they put them in their little hoodies and they sit in the back of their hoods or they sit in the pockets of there are times where I don't even know that the rat is out of the cage and that there's been a kid who has had it on its lap all math class. Just sitting there, the rat's just sleeping in the kid's lap and the kid's just doing their homework. And I had no idea. And they just sit there. And that's the beautiful thing of it. They grab them, they cozy up, they sit them on their laps. And then 40 minutes later, all of a sudden you're like, Mr. Lang, did you know Beefcake was sitting in my lap and sleeping the whole time? I'm like, I had no idea. Great job. Way to do it. So yeah, Beefcake, Kakashi, and Applejack are our rats.
They sound very edible. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions? All right. Final one then from me. Where do you see it going, Cade? Where do you want to be in 10 years with this?
Oh my gosh, you're gonna ask a guy with I don't know. I want my 17-month-old to go sleep through the night. Can I guess for that, right? That's what
have you seen that book, Go the Fuck to Sleep? Have you got that book?
Right. So 10 years out, man. I'm looking for the next 6 months. I'm trying to get a night's sleep in here. That's what I like. I'm a realist, so I think small and hope big, right? And I have always just envisioned, ever since No Child Left Behind, I feel like the American system swung its pendulum to this false narrative and idea that we're going to get all these kids to achieve because we're going to just test them and test them and test them and test them and test them until they achieve it. And in the last 15 or 20 years, I just feel like, okay, like, have we tried that long enough now? Has it been 20 years? Can we try something different, or, you know, an idea that maybe sounds old school, but actually was working? And then I come back to movement methods, and I just look and I show people, and what I believe and what I truly think can happen is that we can just teach American teachers and teachers around the world to see that this strategy pays off, that it pays off in social emotional, it pays off in rigor, it can pay off in results from curriculum or instruction or data, it can pay off in all ends. My hope is that the New Trails banner is sitting in the front of this building, and that every family in this school has the choice to potentially send their kid to a movement method classroom. My hope is that other schools in my district see this. My hope is that other districts around Colorado Springs see the small way that I started and said, all right, if one classroom wants to give it a go, give it a go. You know, that's not a big risk. You know, it doesn't really cost anything. I've proven that a teacher can do it without anything. You know, with a little bit of creativity and some fun, you can stretch a lot of tag games, a lot of relay races, a lot of scavenger hunts, and a lot of duck, duck, goose can go into a lot of academic areas, and kids will at the end of the year go, that was a great year. I can't believe the year's already over. I mean, so I see it as, I want this school to have at least one classroom in every grade level where a family has this choice and option. And I truly see that that could happen in the next like 2 to 5 years. I believe by doing that, I think other schools can start to see that it's like, oh, this is a great idea, because we can't fight our parents. Our parents love the idea and they want it, and they want to see their kids in it. It's not a hard sell, and I'm not a seller. I can't sell things to save my life. I couldn't sell you gloves in the Arctic, but I can just show you what I do, and I can show you the smiles on the kids' faces, and I can show you the results that my students are getting. And that in itself is proof of everything.
Would it help then, rather than, well, in addition to the idea earlier of putting together some sort of, you know, video Zoom pitch, you know, for schools, what if we, the collective we, were somehow to show up at your school chucking our panties at you, and bigging you up and saying, you know, we have traveled like the three wise men, we have followed a star, and there, crying in a manger, we found Cade Lang and his rats. The rats were also adoring at the birth, and sort of effectively come from foreign to see what the laboratory, Cade Lang's laboratory, is all about. And does that sort of attention from time to time tickle the egos of the school administration and others and help? Should we organize a junket to Colorado and just come and have a good time, basically, is what I'm saying.
Hey, I would love it. Come out. I mean, you're not going to have a bad time coming out to Colorado. That's what I would say right there.
You'd have to try pretty hard. Yeah.
You're gonna get a teacher who's gonna hide in his cabinet back there, because I am not like the person who likes to be on stage very often. So I'm gonna be like, oh geez, that's good. That is gonna be me right there. But yeah, I think in general, I think administrators, I think anybody loves to see that it is popular, that people are doing it, that it is. I mean, I think that helps, because I think it breaks the stigma that nobody's doing this and it's never been done. Right. I think it does help. Oh gosh, you're going to get one embarrassed person. Cause like I say, I just stay down in my bat cave and I just do my job. And I think I do it pretty well, but oh my gosh.
Well, what we do is when we come sit in your classroom, we all bring a portable toilet with us. So we sit naked on a toilet while we watch you. So it doesn't intimidate. That way you don't have to imagine us doing it. We're actually doing it. But
my students love it. They're all about the poop humor. I mean,
it's all science all the time, right? And history, we could do it Roman style and pass a communal sponge soaked in vinegar with which to clean ourselves. but I was thinking too, you know, if we showed up and wanted to actually talk to the administration and say, you know, hey, listen, guys, how come you all are so cool and so groundbreaking here? You know what I mean? And sort of engage them that way and make them feel, oh, maybe we are a bit cool and groundbreaking. Oh, you know. And yes, we've traveled all this way to see the great Cade Lang doing his great thing, because word has gotten round in the international community that this is a cool ship. Might that begin to resonate out if that were to happen from time to time?
I think so. I think I know the right people who
Yeah.
I think I know the right people that to bump elbows with, that I think would help to be around for sure.
All right, Henrik, are you hearing this? We're off to Colorado.
Yes, I've never been in Colorado.
Oh, it's a terrible place. You'll hate it, but with enough alcohol, we can make it. We can make
And
it.
I
tolerable.
was,
Who's who's speaking here?
I was in Colorado, and I know Cade.
Yeah,
From-
good to
Gitty.
see you.
Ah, yes.
Hey.
Okay. Well, then you don't
Yeah,
get to
I
come,
love
Gitty,
to-
because you've already had your turn.
What?
Yes, and now I am in Colorado.
Okay, maybe you can both come. All right, Alex, maybe you might want to do that too. You know, Jane, I know you're often that way. Maybe we should think, and of course, anyone else who's on this who wants to come. You know, Bianca's also resident there and doing great work. And then Debbie, who's on this call, is that our Debbie from Greeley? Or is that a different Debbie?
Debbie Fear, I think, from Australia.
Oh, from Australia. Cool. Hey, another Aussie. That's grand. But we have various movement method activity up and down the front range of the Rockies. So maybe we should actually think about this. But you know, I think yeah, administrators are like politicians, really. They need to be voted back in. They need to be bigged up to their supervisors and their boards and their administrations, and they have their own people breathing down their necks. So if we sort of all show up and say, wow, it's so cool, you know, we came like 8,000 miles to see this, yeah, maybe, you know, that puts a shot up their asses a little bit.
I think it does. I think it helps, and I think it helps, and I think it helps to push to them too, that like, hey, this is a great idea, and you could be the first in your district to start it small, and it works. And like I said, I think it's like, you won't regret it. The parents will come flocking pretty quickly. I mean, the parents see it and they quickly, it's a great thing.
Right. I guess we'll do our little outing on
We will. We have a state visit here. Just do you want to walk in behind us? Just watch the dog as you walk in. Look who's here. Just stepping over Axel.
and making sure not to tread on Scotty.
It's but you want to get your head a bit lower. It's the Scobber.
Hello, everybody.
Hey, oh my.
Hello.
It's the great originator of It's the Mentor. It's We Are Not Worthy. This is the man who taught me movement method.
I was gonna say, and it looks like he's trying to compete for mustaches here. I think a little bit.
Hello,
there.
everybody.
Yeah, he's going to be the new lead singer for the Kings of Leon. But he's also just emerged from a jet-lagged slumber because he's just come over from Texas. So, want to say a quick hello?
Oh, well, I did say hello.
You did say a quick hello. Do you want to say any more kind of hello, or do you want to say, actually, no, I want to go off and have a snack?
I think I'm going to go off and have a snack, but I appreciate seeing all of y'all today.
All right. Cheers, man.
Yeah.
Cool. All right then. And would you help me walk Axel in a bit?
Of course.
That would be wonderful. Good. Axel always needs a walk. All right then, chaps. Okay, if there's nothing else, and if there is, chat me. If there's anything you'd like to add, Cade, do you have any resources we could go to? Is there a website? Is there anything like that?
Oh, I would say come to me. Just come to me. I do have a website. It's not going to inform you on enough, but please, I'll put my email. I'll put both my emails in the chat. Come to me with questions. Please, I'm not exactly great at coming in front of everybody and speaking tons, but I've got lots of information, and if nothing else, I just can tell you I've done everything the wrong way and learned the hard way. to know any tips and advice to give to people. I mean, I know that's part of how I am. I just sort of say, I've got this great idea, Rue, you know, Bianca, you guys gave me a good direction to go, and now just let me make a mess of it and find out what's great and what works and what might help you move along. So please, if you guys have questions, you want to bounce ideas, you've got, you know, administration questions, how to get into schools. Hey, I would love to give advice and help in any ways I can.
Super. So you'll put your contact in the chat and the website too.
Yes, I will do that right now.
I think you undersell yourself, Cade. You're a pretty good speaker.
And actually, I just bought 100 weight of gloves from him. For my new trip to the Arctic.
Yeah.
All right. So I see your there you go. And the website too, please. Website too, if you could.
My personal, and I will get my website here in just a second. So let me find it. I am. It's here somewhere. There we go. All right, and there is my website. The website's nothing grand yet. It's just kind of my website. It kind of gives my quick rundown on movement methods and how it works in my classroom, and tons of resources to just more curriculum things that I teach in my classroom. But yeah,
I suspect it's pretty awesome. And I suspect, as Jane says, you're underselling it. So we'll be off to plunder it and steal every idea we can. All right, well then, grand everybody. This is really, really cool, Cade. I'm so glad we did this. It's long overdue, and I've been, you know, watching your progress from afar and obviously getting a lot of updates through Bianca. But I was like, no, man, we got to hear it directly from him. And then, you know, we wanted Cade to come over here, and then there was COVID, and then no, oh shit, it's going to cost a lot of money because we're going to, it's all, you know, really last minute. And I was like, fuck it, what are we waiting for? Why don't we just get him on fucking Zoom?
Yeah.
And then take it from there. But I do want to get you over here, and obviously we will come there and grow it further. I think a very obvious thing, Cade, is for you to go up to Henrik, where they're doing, you know, the whole school is turned over to movement method in Aalen in North Germany. That's pretty amazing. You know, Alex, who's lurking there, I know has been doing stuff within the school system in the UK. And then there's a lady called Jennifer Tatham who turned over her preschool to it in Nottingham. And so on. So I think we need to put our heads together and see what we want to do. I have a wish. What I would really like to do is approach schools a bit now from a climate point of view, and look at them as green islands, cool islands in neighborhoods as cities warm, and look at really turning them into forests. And that doesn't just mean standing trees. That means creepers up the building. That means, you know, shaded areas projecting from buildings covered in greenery. So that these serve as sort of green islands in very, very hot neighborhoods, you know, where people can come and literally cool off. And I sort of like to start thinking and brainstorming around this. And I think there's governments needing to spend money, wanting to spend money on this, and partnerships like in England with people like the Woodland Trust. You know, Henrik, I'm sure there's woodland groups in Germany. I can't believe that if we went to, I don't know, Sierra Club, that's the obvious one off the top of my head, things like that, or maybe there's more urban-based groups in the US. But I think this could be a sneaky way in for us with movement method, sort of Trojan horse in a way of saying, oh no, let's just come in and make a climate island, you know. Oh yes, and it's also science and stuff like that. But really, it's, you know, it's about being seen to do the right thing for climate, and we can also teach everything through these. And then, you know, you obviously, Cade, are very poised to say, well, actually, yes, we've been doing this actually for a number of years with these great results. And it has indeed included trees. So that's sort of, I'm percolating that idea and would love to brainstorm it up with people. Yeah, I want to call it greenmyschool.com. Just like we're starting with movemyschool.com. And, you know, just would love to chat more about this, basically.
Is there the capacity as well, and this isn't all on Cade, but and this may already exist, but like mentorship on a wider level? Because it seems like you, Cade, have like a huge amount of initiative and drive and innovation to reach out and tap into resources, and have created your own kind of thing with that, which is incredible. But I imagine there's a lot of teachers out there who would love to do the same thing, but perhaps have less of a internal impetus to do so because of their own doubt or fear or just lack of support. And so being able to tap into a network of teachers that are like, oh, try this or do this, if they are like a little satellite in their own island, is enough to kind of like get people over the line.
I love that idea. I would say that it would be pretty beneficial to really kind of, like you said, just helping hone teachers who kind of have all the burdens of the school system, to have sort of an easy outlet, like a blog of some sort, to just go in and like bounce ideas off. I think that would be really helpful. Because I mean, I know I've said it's just teaching is its own weird dynamic. And sometimes you just need to talk to other teachers who understand the burdens of being a teacher and what it's like. I do think that would be helpful. Yeah.
So that may be something we should think of. I'm looking at Ileana here. Is that something we should start thinking about setting up? Maybe some sort of a blog within, you know, for the teachers to talk to each other specifically, that also parents and others could, you know, tap into for the ideas. But yeah, I could see just the moral support of that being huge.
Yeah. Because it's just a unique situation, you know. I mean, being able to be, you know, parenting at home in your own home school versus a private school versus a public school. I mean, being in that public school, there's just certain things that there's just certain burdens and overwhelming things that you feel that, you know, a lot of other people aren't going to understand or know. And yeah, it is helpful. Yeah.
Cool. All right, then we'll put it on the to-do list.
And I have one advice. If it is interesting for you, I'm just called in the experts commission here in this area from North Rhine-Westphalia, and from the government here, and we have an expert commission. They can go to the government and they ask us, what can we do for a better school? What can we do for inclusive school and so on? It's just 14 days. And last week I stay in the government. I met the ministry, and I think that is another way to go with the movement method from the bottom. And this is one from the top, because it hopefully it helps in the middle.
Would it help, Henrik, for that when you're approaching people at that ministerial level, again, to have somebody like Cade chime in and say, this is what it's like in the front line, this is why it makes it better?
Yes, I think always it is better you have some guy from the other side of the and they come from US or
we lost you, or at least I lost you.
Countries, and say, oh, the more.
Yeah.
Yes, and in the other side, I can go to other places and they can point it to me and say, oh, look here in Germany, they are thinking the same. And we have always the same teachers. They are always, you remember this, they told us the same problems. And I think, okay, we have this program and they can solve your problems in Germany, in England, in US.
I think it often helps when people from outside come in. Everyone takes notice of the exotic. When you're local, people don't really pay much attention to you. When you come in from the outside, you carry a certain automatic glamour, which can be useful. And so, yes, I wonder, well, obviously, Henrik, you'll be in touch with Cade, and, you know, maybe get him in front of those ministers.
Hey, I'm not often considered exotic, but if that gives me an exotic tag, maybe I'll take it.
Oh, it's your flamboyant plumage, Cade. I'm already, you know, thinking about the eggs I might lay. You know, it's amazing. I'm nesting.
So awesome.
Perfect.
All right. In that case, is everyone's connected. We have a couple of ideas to move on with. Cade, would love to have you back on this. Maybe a bit later in the year and talk to us again about, well, I mean, the coming year. So I just got pointed out that the year is mostly over, but you know what I mean. Because I think now that everyone knows what you're doing and where you're at, it would be really nice to go into some more specifics. Like, I'm teaching this way. I'm teaching this way. This would be really helpful. So would you be willing to come on again?
Absolutely. Yeah. Let me know. I mean, always at the end of the school years are great times because everybody's kind of like wrapping up, trying to reflect on their year. Catch me at the beginning of a school year when everybody's got their energy and excited to maybe try some new things. So whenever works best. And then could I ask a question from Oyo? When you email him with your questions, please, would you CC me or Ileana or both on, so because we would love to hear Cade's answers and not have them get lost. So it's really useful for us if you can CC us in. We see the question, we see the answer. Fantastic. This becomes a resource for the greater website for other people, etc., etc. So please do that. Yeah. Connie, I see that parent survey. If you can email me, then I'll have your email, and then I can share those results with you if you'd like to see.
Oh,
Super.
yeah. Thank you. Thanks.
And would you guys CC us on that? Would you CC me and Cade? Yeah.
Yeah.
Not that I'm a
I'll,
control freak or anything.
Yeah. Here's my email.
Make sure I write it down.
Yeah, I can't wait to look through your website and see what's out there. Exciting.
Oh, no. Let me know, and then I'm sure I've got lots of extra. There's plenty more I need to get better at as well. So, thank you for all the kind words, you guys. You guys are amazingly kind and generous. I appreciate it. So, like I said, I'm just a good teacher who likes to stay in my classroom. That's really what I.
Well, we're glad you do, because you're doing fantastic work.
Yes.
All right then, folks. Shall we wrap it up? Does everyone feel satisfied that they've had all 3 courses and dessert as well? Coffee will be served in the next room. Again, if there are any questions, I'm sure you guys can email them, because always things are going to pop up. I know things are popping up already in my head that I'm going to ask you, Cade. But really, I just want to thank you again for taking the time, also for doing the work, and for being out there in the front line doing it and making such a spectacular success out of it. Just as a parent who pulled his kid out of school because I knew that where I was it couldn't work, he showed me very clearly by taking off all his clothes and lying on the ground and screaming, "I want to be a countryside boy." So I said, okay. But then who subsequently went back, and what was interesting is last year, he's graduated now, after he went back to high school at 16. And then when he was taking exams, last year, sitting down for 3 hours doing exams, like, fuck, really, Scub, you're going to do that? That's just amazing. He said amazing. He said, yeah, if I hadn't had all that movement method, I wouldn't have been able to do that. And that came off the cuff while we were sitting in traffic. I was like, yes, would you put that in writing, please, sir? But it does show. And I think I heard very clearly what you said about the kids going on into other classrooms, which are now not as good as yours, but taking that resilience and that learning how to learn with them, so that even in less optimal situations, they could take that through. What is that if not a skill set? What is that if not a life skill? Because we know that frequently we're going to be put into situations, where it's not optimal, and it's up to us to make it work. And if we don't learn some of these skills as kids, then we're a bit buggered. So you're clearly imparting that, Cade. And again, just thank you very much for doing that work.
Yes.
Hey, thank you all. Appreciate it. You guys make it super easy for me. I mean, I'm preaching to the choir things we all believe and know. And like I said, let's just keep trying to convince the rest of the world to be on our well, that's what I say.
Thanks, Cade.
It's easy for me. Guys, it's like I think I'm the lucky one. You guys are all the ones early or late. I'm like sitting here in the noon hour. I'm like, I'm good. Yeah. Can you convince my 17-month-old of that? Like that'd be awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, sleep is sexy.
Beyond.
Yeah.
All right, guys. In that case, let's wrap it up, and I look forward to seeing you on the next webinar. Thank you, guys.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you guys.
Thank you. Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
Bye.
Bye bye.